You've been told to be humble, to not speak too highly of yourself, to blend in, to be careful, not to appear arrogant. And somewhere along the way, that message twisted itself into something dangerous: self-doubt. Now, when you stand in front of a mirror, when you enter a room, when you make a decision, there's a pause, a hesitation, a quiet voice asking, "Am I enough?" That voice doesn't come from truth. It comes from repetition. And the longer you listen to it, the more you forget who you are. But Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic, left us a path out of that trap, not through ego, not through external validation, but through a return to what's always been yours, your inner strength, because you are not weak, you are not broken, you are simply misaligned with the power that already lives in you. This episode is not here to hype you up or give you false confidence. It's here to show you how Stoic philosophy, especially the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, can burn away the fog of self-doubt and bring you back to clarity. You will not underestimate yourself after this, because by the end, you'll see what was always true, that your mind, your discipline, your ability to endure and act with principle, these are your greatest weapons. And when you learn to use them, no opinion, no failure, no moment of fear can take your value away. If that's a shift you're ready to make, subscribe now to Stoic Reflections. Like this video if something inside you is done with playing small, and leave a comment sharing the doubt you're ready to outgrow. Let's begin. 1. Inner strength comes from within. You don't need permission to be powerful. You don't need applause to be worthy. And you certainly don't need to wait for others to validate what you already know deep down, that the strength you're looking for isn't out there, it's inside you. The Stoics were clear: what happens outside of you is not where your real power lives. It lives in how you respond, how you endure, how you think, how you act. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, your mind shapes your reality, not in theory, but in every choice you make. You are not shaped by what others say about you. You are shaped by what you choose to believe, to repeat, to carry. Inner strength is quiet, it's not flashy, it doesn't beg for recognition. It shows up when it's needed and disappears when the work is done. It's in the moments you keep going when no one's watching. It's in the decisions you make when no one will ever know. It's the calm you hold in chaos, the clarity you find in pressure, the principle you live by when shortcuts tempt you. That kind of strength can't be borrowed, it has to be built. And it's built in silence, not in front of crowds, but in front of your own reflection. You stop underestimating yourself when you stop outsourcing your value. The reason most people feel powerless is because they've forgotten how much they already endure. Look at your life. Everything you've faced, everything you've survived. That wasn't weakness. That was strength in motion. And it didn't come from motivation. It came from something deeper. The decision to keep showing up. That decision is everything, because no matter how chaotic the outside world becomes, if you can control your thoughts, if you can align your actions with virtue, you remain untouchable. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while fighting illness, betrayal, war, and death, and he still chose kindness. He still practiced self-control. He still returned again and again to the idea that within is where the battle is fought, not out there, not with fame, wealth, or reputation, but with your own thoughts, your own choices, your own principles. That's what defines you. So stop looking for strength in the next achievement, in someone's approval, in external success. Those things will come and go, but what stays, what can never be taken, is the character you build when no one's clapping, the kind of strength that doesn't need to be seen to be real. That's the Stoic way. That's your way. And the moment you start acting like the person you want to become, instead of waiting to feel like them, that's the moment you stop underestimating who you really are. 2. Self-doubt is a mental habit. You can break. You weren't born doubting yourself. You didn't come into this world questioning your worth, hesitating to speak, or second-guessing every decision. That voice in your head, the one that tells you you're not good enough, smart enough, strong enough, that voice was taught to you. Slowly, repeatedly, through criticism, comparison, rejection, and the subtle messages of a world that profits from your insecurity. But here's the truth. The Stoics would have you remember, anything that is learned can be unlearned. Self-doubt is not a truth about you. It's a habit of thought. And habits, no matter how deep, can be broken, not by shouting over them, but by exposing them for what they are, fear disguised as humility. Most people confuse modesty with silence. They think keeping their head down is a virtue, but Marcus Aurelius never asked us to shrink. He asked us to live in alignment with reason, with virtue, with purpose. And there is nothing virtuous about hiding your gifts out of fear. There is no strength in pretending to be small so others feel more comfortable. You don't need to prove yourself to the world, but you do need to stop hiding from yourself. The first step is to recognize the doubt when it speaks. Catch it, interrupt it. Don't let it go unchecked like background noise. Because if you repeat a lie long enough, your body starts to believe it. And if you let self-doubt shape your choices, it will eventually shape your life. The Stoic doesn't aim for blind confidence, they aim for clarity. They train their mind to separate perception from fact. So when the voice of doubt says, "You can't do this," the Stoic asks, "Is that true? Or is that just a memory trying to lead me?" And that question and that moment of inquiry creates space. Space to act, space to move, space to reclaim power over thought. Because you don't overcome self-doubt with more thinking. You overcome it with action, with motion, with the quiet discipline of showing up even when you don't feel ready. Every time you act in spite of doubt, you train your mind to trust you. And that trust is the foundation of real confidence, not arrogance, not bravado, but a calm knowing. I've walked through fear before, and I can do it again. That knowing becomes your edge. It becomes the force that helps you speak when your voice shakes, move when your legs hesitate, and choose growth over safety. So the next time you feel that pull, that pause that says, maybe not you, answer it with presence, with stillness, with resolve. Self-doubt is not your nature. It's just an echo. And you don't have to believe every echo. You can listen, smile, and still take the next step forward. Because the version of you you're afraid to be seen as, well, that's not the real you. The real you is what remains when you stop apologizing for existing. And that self, the one beneath the noise, is already strong, already worthy, already enough. 3. Confidence is forged through endurance. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's not some natural trait a few lucky people inherit while the rest watch from the sidelines. Confidence is built, slowly, quietly, in the background of the moments most people run from. It's not built in comfort. It's not built when everything is going your way. It's forged in the fire of endurance, when you're tired but still show up, when you're afraid but still act, when everything in you wants to quit but you take one more step. That's where real confidence is born. Not from hype or applause, but from persistence, from discipline, from the deep understanding that you've survived what you thought would break you and you're still standing. The Stoics never defined confidence as arrogance or loud self-assurance. For them, it was a quiet certainty, a grounded presence. Marcus Aurelius endured war, illness, betrayal, and constant pressure. Yet his writings reflect not a man broken by stress, but one sharpened by it. He didn't rely on motivation, he relied on clarity, on virtue, on the principle that what matters is not what you feel in the moment, but how you act in spite of it. And that is the heart of confidence, knowing that your mind, your values, and your actions are aligned, especially when life tests you. When you look back at your life, the moments that truly shaped you weren't easy. They were the ones you had to push through, the heartbreaks, the failures, the quiet mornings where you got up and did what had to be done without recognition. That's your training ground. That's where your character was carved. And every time you kept going, even just barely, you laid another brick in the foundation of trust with yourself. And self-trust is the seed of confidence. Without it, no amount of praise or achievement will satisfy you. With it, you can walk into uncertainty without flinching. Not because you know everything will go perfectly, but because you know you'll show up no matter what. The reason most people lack confidence isn't because they're weak. It's because they've forgotten what they've already endured. They overlook their own resilience. They focus on who they're not, instead of honoring who they've become through experience. But the Stoic doesn't ignore pain. They study it, they learn from it, they let it shape them into someone who doesn't crumble when tested, because pain is a crucible. And when you walk through it with purpose, you don't come out the same, you come out stronger. So the next time you wonder if you're ready, remember, confidence is not something you wait for. It's something you generate by enduring, by standing tall, by not backing down when the moment calls for courage. You're not fragile, you're forged, and every hard thing you've faced has been preparing you for the next one. Confidence is earned, and you're earning it, one moment at a time. 4. Your mind is your most powerful tool. Everything you experience, your emotions, your choices, your reactions, your habits, flows from one place, your mind. It is not just a receiver of life, it is the lens that colors it, shapes it, defines it. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts. If your thoughts are scattered, anxious, or negative, your life will mirror that. If your thoughts are disciplined, clear, and grounded, your actions, and therefore your outcomes, begin to change. You are not powerless in this. You are the gatekeeper of your mind. And the Stoics believed that guarding that gate was one of the highest responsibilities of life. Most people go through their days reacting. They consume everything, noise, fear, opinions, without discrimination. Their minds are cluttered with headlines, arguments, memories, comparisons, and then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed, angry, or aimless. But the Stoic trains the mind the way a warrior sharpens a sword. They don't just let thoughts in, they interrogate them. They ask, is this useful? Is this true? Does this align with who I want to be? If the answer is no, the thought is discarded, not out of denial, but out of discipline. Your mind is not a dumping ground for every worry and distraction the world throws at you. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be left to rust or shaped into something precise and powerful. Every time you choose clarity over chaos, by journaling, meditating, reflecting, pausing before reacting, you are training the mind to serve you instead of sabotage you. And over time, this builds something unshakable, inner order. That order becomes your compass, your strength, your clarity in moments where most people fall apart. But this takes work. It means letting go of the comfort of passive thinking. It means confronting your own patterns, the stories you repeat about not being good enough, the assumptions you make without evidence, the comparisons that quietly drain your worth. These patterns don't go away by themselves. They go away when you expose them, replace them, and consistently return to what is real. That is Stoic thought in action, choosing reason over reaction, discipline over distraction. You have one of the most powerful instruments in existence, your mind. And no one can take control of it unless you hand it over. The world will try every day to fill it with urgency, fear, noise, but you have the final say. And when you begin to shape your thoughts with intention, everything else begins to follow: your decisions, your focus, your peace. Clean your mind, and your life will follow, because the chaos isn't out there. It starts, is, and ends in the way you think. Train that, and you reclaim your freedom. Not later, not after everything is perfect. Right now, one clear thought at a time. 5. Comparison is the fastest way to shrink your power. Nothing weakens your spirit faster than the quiet act of looking sideways. You glance at what they've built, what they've achieved, how they look, how they speak. And without realizing it, you begin subtracting from yourself. You measure your worth by their success, your progress by their pace, your voice by their volume. And in doing so, you shrink. You abandon your path to stand in someone else's shadow. But Marcus Aurelius warned us, don't waste what's left of your life in guessing what others are doing or thinking. The Stoic knows that comparison isn't just a distraction, it's a betrayal of your nature. You were not designed to be someone else. Your life is not a copy. Your growth is not a race. When you measure yourself against another, you dishonor your process. You ignore your scars, your context, your depth, the very things that make your strength real. Comparison reduces all of that to surface metrics, to what can be seen. But true virtue, true progress is often invisible. It's not in the titles or the praise. It's in the quiet self-overcoming, in who you were yesterday versus who you are becoming now. That's the only comparison that matters. And yet the mind craves contrast. It looks for validation in being better, faster, more admired. That's the ego speaking. The Stoic silences it by remembering what's in their control: effort, clarity, intention. When you bring your focus back to your own alignment, when you ask, am I acting with reason? Am I living by principle? The noise fades. You no longer care who's ahead because you've redefined what winning means. It's not being above someone else, it's being in integrity with yourself. The danger of comparison isn't just self-doubt, it's self-abandonment. You start shaping your decisions, your schedule, your values around what others expect or display. You stop asking what matters to you. You chase images instead of impact. And little by little, you forget your original reason for doing anything at all. But when you pause and return to your center, when you remember that your value isn't on display, it's in your discipline, everything recalibrates. The Stoic path is not loud, it's not validated by the crowd. It's quiet, internal, deliberate. You could live your entire life in excellence and be ignored by the world and still be winning deeply, fully, honorably, because you weren't made to outperform anyone. You were made to master yourself. So when the urge to compare creeps in, stop, breathe, return to your lane, remember who you were before the world told you who to be, and walk forward, not to impress, but to align. That's where your power lives, not in their applause, but in your unshakable refusal to be anyone but your truest self. 6. Courage is built by acting with fear, not without it. Fear doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. And more importantly, it means you're standing at the edge of something real. Fear shows up when you're about to stretch and when you're reaching beyond what's familiar, safe, or predictable. But the Stoics never taught us to erase fear. They taught us to walk through it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. If not, then stop complaining." He didn't wait for the fear to disappear. He faced it with discipline, because real courage isn't acting without fear. It's acting while fear stands beside you. The modern world sells the idea of fearlessness, as if confidence means never shaking, never doubting, never hesitating. But that's not strength, that's performance. The Stoic understands that fear is a companion, not a curse. It whispers before the speech, before the decision, before the boundary is set, before the truth is told. And the goal is not to silence that whisper, it's to keep moving while it speaks. Every time you act in spite of fear, you rewire your mind. You teach it that fear is not a stop sign, it's a signal, a reminder that you are alive, aware, and about to grow. What makes most people retreat is the belief that fear is a warning, but the Stoic redefines it as an invitation to rise, to lead, to endure. And this is where true transformation happens, because courage is not built in theory, it's built in repetition. You speak up once, even though your voice shakes. You show up, even though you feel unqualified. You keep going, even though everything inside you says to turn back. And through that repetition, fear begins to lose its authority. Your nervous system will always respond to the unfamiliar. That's not failure, that's evolution. But you're not your nervous system, you're the one deciding how to respond. And that's where freedom begins. You stop waiting to feel brave. You start acting like the person who knows that bravery isn't a mood, it's a pattern. And that pattern builds trust with yourself. It says, even if I'm afraid, I move. Even if I doubt, I step forward. The Stoic doesn't need to feel fearless to do something great. They just need to feel grounded in values, in reason, in purpose. And when those are clear, fear has nowhere to root itself. Because action, when aligned with virtue, becomes more powerful than emotion. And the more you live this way, the less power fear has. Not because it vanishes, but because you've stopped mistaking it for truth. So whatever fear you're facing now, rejection, failure, exposure, loss, understand that it's not here to stop you. It's here to test your alignment. And if you move anyway, if you take one step forward without needing all the answers, you're already winning. Not later, not after the fear is gone, but now, in the presence of it. That's courage. That's Stoicism in motion. And that's who you are becoming. 7. Solitude builds self-respect. It's easy to look confident when others are watching, when applause follows your every move, when validation flows in through likes, messages, or recognition. But the Stoics didn't measure strength by public approval. They measured it by private integrity. Who are you when the lights are off, the room is empty, and no one will ever see what you do next? That's where self-respect is forged, not in the spotlight, but in solitude. And it's in that solitude, when you choose discipline over distraction, principle over impulse, that your identity becomes unshakable. Marcus Aurelius ruled the largest empire in the world, yet spent countless hours alone with his journal, writing to himself, refining his mind, confronting his flaws. He didn't rely on praise to feel whole. He relied on action. Quiet action, repeated action. Not for the crowd, for himself. Because the person who shows up when no one is watching is the one you live with every single day. And if that person honors their word, follows their path, and acts with courage in silence, then self-respect becomes inevitable. Most people fear solitude because it removes the noise, the distractions, the excuses. It forces you to face what you've been avoiding, the unfinished thoughts, the ignored responsibilities, the uncomfortable truths. But the Stoic doesn't run from that mirror. They look into it daily, not to judge, but to grow. Because only in silence can you hear what your life has really been trying to tell you. Solitude also reveals whether your values are real or just convenient. Do you meditate only when others are around? Do you eat well only when someone's watching? Do you speak with principle in private, as you do in public? These are the questions that matter, because the foundation of real confidence, the kind that lasts when everything else fades, is built in those unseen moments. When you wake up early without being told, when you do the right thing and don't broadcast it, when you sit in your own presence and feel peace, not panic. This kind of solitude doesn't isolate you, it fortifies you. It teaches you that you don't need constant input to feel valid, that your life has direction even when it's quiet, that your power grows in spaces where there's nothing to prove. And as that self-respect builds, your dependence on external validation fades. You no longer need to chase affirmation because you've already given yourself the one thing no one else can offer: integrity. So don't fear being alone. Seek it, use it, let it become your training ground, because if you can walk with yourself, stay true in silence, and act with virtue when no one is looking, then no voice, no critic, no absence can shake who you are. That is Stoic strength, and that is where unbreakable confidence begins. 8. Virtue, not outcome, is the measure of success. The world will always try to define you by results, by the money you earn, the titles you hold, the applause you receive. It measures value in outcomes and teaches you to do the same. Win, and you're worthy. Fail, and you've fallen. But Stoicism flips that equation entirely. Marcus Aurelius, despite being an emperor, never tied his worth to how events unfolded. He tied it to one thing: virtue. To him, success wasn't in winning the battle, it was in fighting it honorably. It wasn't in being praised, it was in being principled. And that's the shift most people never make. They live attached to outcomes, forgetting that the only true success is who you became in the process. When you live this way, you become free, because results are fragile. You can pour your heart into something and still fail. You can prepare for years and still fall short. But virtue, discipline, honesty, perseverance, courage, these don't depend on what happens. They depend only on you. The archer, as the Stoics remind us, must aim with care, with focus, with skill. But once the arrow is released, the wind decides what happens next. The Stoic doesn't curse the wind. They return to the bow, they return to the process. They return to the one place where success still lives, their own effort. This mindset is rare. Most people live reactively, high when things go well, low when they don't. They chase validation, fear rejection, and measure their life in external highs. But the Stoic is steady, not because they don't care, but because they've redefined what matters. They don't ask, did I win? They ask, was I honest? Was I disciplined? Did I act with reason, with kindness, with clarity? And if the answer is yes, then they've already succeeded, because nothing can take that away. This shift also protects your peace. When you focus on outcomes, you become attached. You stress, you control, you panic when things slip. But when you root yourself in virtue, you remain grounded, even when the outcome is uncertain, even when the results are delayed. You know your value doesn't hang in the balance. It's already secured by how you live, how you choose, how you show up. So ask yourself today, if no one ever saw the result, would you still be proud of your effort? If no one ever praised you, would your discipline still matter? If the outcome was out of your hands, would you still give your best? These are Stoic questions, and the answers define not just your success, but your freedom. Because when you stop chasing results and start embodying virtue, you don't just change how you live. You change who you are, and that version of you doesn't break, doesn't bend, doesn't need permission to keep going. They move forward not because of what they might gain, but because of who they refuse to stop being. You don't need to wait for someone to remind you of your worth. You don't need to chase approval or measure yourself by the world's unstable standards, because your strength, your real, unshakable power, has always lived inside you. Not in what others see, but in what you choose. You've walked through the fire. You've endured more than you ever thought you could. And through it all, your mind, your virtue, your inner discipline, they've been sharpening. Not loudly, not for attention, but for truth. You're not weak, you're not behind, you're not broken. You're simply remembering who you've been all along. Marcus Aurelius didn't tell us to become great. He told us to become aligned with reason, with nature, with what is within our control. And today you've seen how every doubt, every fear, every moment of hesitation can be met not with force, but with clarity. Because confidence isn't noise, it's presence. And your presence, when rooted in virtue, is impossible to ignore. If this episode helped you reconnect with your strength, if it reminded you of the discipline you already carry, then do one thing now. Subscribe to Stoic Reflections, like this video to affirm your own growth, and leave a comment sharing the habit of thought you're ready to replace. This is not the end of your progress, it's just the beginning of your return to yourself, stoically, powerfully, quietly, as it's always been meant to be.